There were some very big changes that were announced yesterday. We don't know when they're going to be in place yet, so there's lots of questions out there, but I think we should talk about what these changes are going to mean. What was
Yes.
the one of the major changes that we saw?
Well, the minister said this. Graduates from programs at public colleges will remain eligible for a postgrad work permit for up to 3 years if they graduate from a field of study linked to occupations in long-term shortages. So many questions I have about this statement. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
Yeah, I think that leaves a lot of open questions. The first one that comes to mind is what is the list of occupations that are in long-term shortage? Who is going to be making this list? Is that a list that's going to be changing over time or will it be solid? And when will this change come into effect? We don't know yet. And when the change comes in, we're wondering, is it going to include students who have already started their program, or is it going to be for people who are just starting this year? That does remain to be seen, but it's going to have big impacts, the answers to those questions as these rules come out.
Yes, and how do we have a field of study linked to the occupations? Who determines that? How is that determined? That's certainly these questions are going to be very important.
Absolutely.
What else are the changes to the postgrad work permits that they've announced?
So one change that was announced yesterday also is that there will now be a language requirement. So for graduates from college, they're going to need to show a CLB level of 5 in order to get their postgrad work permit. And for graduates from university programs, they need to have a CLB level of 7 to get their postgrad work permit. And while this may not be a very big problem for many people, it is going to impact timing for the postgrad work permit quite a bit. And it does add another requirement that's very important to consider in your plan for making a postgrad work permit if that's something that you're planning on doing.
Yes, it's just another layer of bureaucracy that a lot of you guys, I'm sure most students would have already passed these results. Now, it remains to be seen whether IRCC is going to require them to do another IELTS or CELPIP or Pearson test, or if they can use the test that they had used previously if they are already expired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in terms of other changes that have been announced, so there were some as well that are going to be impacting spouses of workers and students. So the change said that they'll be limiting work permit eligibility later this year to spouses of foreign workers in management or professional occupations or in sectors with labor shortages under Canada's work permit programs, such as the Temporary Foreign Worker Program or the International Mobility Program.
Yes, so this one is very important. It's not just for international students, it's for people um, who hold all sorts of different work permits. Now, again, this statement is ambiguous. Does it mean that only workers of under the TFWP and IMP is affected by this and their spouses, or because we have other people who have open work permits, such as postgrad work permits, such as a humanitarian work permits. Now, are they also expected to only work to only be able to get spousal work permits for the spouses if they work in management or professional occupations? Normally, that's a tier O or one. And if that is the case, that would create a huge burden on students, on graduates, on all sorts of workers, because um, what if their occupations don't fall into one of these? So zero, tier one, and sectors with labor shortages. If their spouses can't work, many people won't be able to support themselves.
Yeah, it has very big implications. And another limitation that we're seeing for spouses that was announced is that later this year, spouses of master's degree students are only going to get a work permit if their spouse is studying in a program that's at least 16 months in duration. So this is another change that leaves us with some open questions, mainly when is this going to come into effect? I think that's a big question for all of these changes that have been announced. And it has big implications for people's long-term immigration plans. If you've been planning on having your spouse study here and working, if you're thinking of your post-grad work permit down the line, it's going to be really important to pay close attention to these updates in the coming weeks and months as they're made by immigration.
And if you already qualify, I would make your application before these changes take place. But stay tuned, guys. We are closely monitoring the situation and we'll let you know once we have some more concrete details. Take care.
Bye.